Welcome to Hey I Like, a podcast in which we talk about the things that make our neurodivergent brains go bonkers. I am your host, JJ. I use any pronouns, and this is my guest.
Hi, I'm Jess. You might know me as your normal host.
Y-
Very cool role reversal today.
yeah.
Uh,
Our
um,
eagle-eared listeners might have noticed the second I started talking that I am not, in fact, you.
yeah, they might have. I use she, they pronouns, and today I am going to be talking about the fantastic Native American playwright Gowongo Mohawk and her unfortunately only play, probably, Wepton Noma, the Indian mail carrier.
Now, from what I've heard you speak about this is so fascinating. Like, you have accidentally become the world's leading expert in this one playwright. Like, you just stumbled over a series of things and then became the world's leading expert, which is truly wild and also fantastic. You are like the best person to have on this podcast to talk about her.
Yeah, I mean, we say world's leading expert, but, you know, I don't actually know everything because no one knows everything, and she's that obscure that no one really knows anything.
That doesn't
And
matter.
like,
Stop talking down your achievements. That doesn't matter.
the irony is, I don't think anyone intended for this to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, especially not me. This was meant to be a 6 week thing several years ago.
This is how you get that guy who was like a specialist in like chemistry or something, and then became the world's leading expert in crocodile breeding. Like,
yeah,
that's the sort of
literally.
deal.
No, you have no idea how accurate that is, because like the story is basically that I was like just about to graduate uni, so I had nothing to do because I'd submitted my dissertation, and I was like only going to be at uni for like 2 more days, and we got this email through the department about a research internship through the AHRC, the American Humanities Research Council.
Yep.
Who were working with our university to do a project on Native American presence in the UK.
Cool.
And I was like, oh, you know what? That sounds cool. I'll do that for the summer. It's like they said it would all be online. So that's great. Emailed the guy in charge. Knew me by name somehow, even though I had no idea who he was really, despite being there for 3 years. And he kind of just goes, oh, sure, we'll take you. I thought there'd be an application process, but no, he just wanted an email to say, hey, do you still have any slots on this internship? So he's just like, go look through this newspaper archives for this person. We'll give you all these login details and everything. And this person was Gowongo Mohawk, who I had never heard of before in my life. And at this point, I was kind of like, okay, sure, this is probably going to be super dull because, trawling through newspaper archives is not massively interesting.
Yeah, it can be really boring.
But CV and all that.
Yep.
So I agreed to do it, and I quickly realized that there are like several hundred pages of search results in the newspaper archives.
Oh my god.
And this is just the British newspaper archives.
Jesus.
And I sort of cry a little inside because, not only do I have to document every single one of these, I also have to find the exact longitude and latitude for all the theatres that she performed in.
Jesus
fuck. Considering this is in like the 1890s,
most of those don't exist
anymore. But yeah, so I'm doing this research on this lady that I know nothing about really, because the Wikipedia page at this point was half a paragraph.
Yeah.
And I didn't know her. And I didn't really have any kind of connection to it at all. It was just something for me to do with my summer. And then I read the article, the one that mentions the horses.
So if you don't know Jess, I would like to start out by saying, Jess knows a truly ridiculous amount about horses, because horses, how long have horses been your special interest for at this point? Like, at least a couple decades.
Well, I am only a couple of decades old.
Yeah, I know.
But, yeah, basically. Can you call it a special interest when you live in Iceland and point at the ponies out the car every time and go, pony, but don't know anything yet?
No, but that is the seed of baby's first special interest.
I think that's what most children do, but if that's not the start of it, then I think we would probably have to go with age 7.
It's
maybe
close
before
enough.
that, when I was begging my parents for riding lessons, but yeah,
close
so
enough to 2
at
decades.
least 15 years.
Yeah, so like
basically.
the fact that it was the horses that dragged you in does not surprise me whatsoever. In fact, it makes perfect sense.
Me either.
And it makes perfect sense, and this is totally in line with what I know about you as a person. And
Yeah.
as an autistic person, thank you for your consistency. I love it when people are consistent.
Yeah, it surprised absolutely no one. But yeah, so at this point, my deeply autistic brain, at this point entirely undiagnosed and not really thinking at any point, oh, you know what? Maybe there is something going on there. Yeah, just goes, horses? Okay. And from then on, I was just like obsessed with the whole project.
Horses were the gateway drug.
This was meant to be a low-key summer project, and I was specifically told by the guy in charge not to go overboard on it.
That's a pointless thing to ask.
You need to know that for context for what happens next.
I'm sorry, but like if you are a university member of staff and you are running one of these internships, people are going to apply to these internships. Telling people who apply for internships doing obscure shit like trawling through newspaper archives, telling them not to go overboard, that's like asking a dolphin not to swim. Like, that's just impossible.
I don't know. I don't know what he expected. But yeah, so he told me not to go overboard because it's the summer holidays and I was meant to be taking a break because I just submitted a 10,000 word dissertation and all that. And I proceeded to latch onto the mention of these 2 horses in this article and become so obsessed with the project that I would spend 6 hours curled up like a shrimp in the chair in the living room, glued to my laptop, writing hundreds of words of notes into a spreadsheet, which I still have and have used at length in my notes for this. I would get up, have lunch, then start up again, to the point where I sometimes wouldn't notice my mum coming home from work at 2 p.m. And she'd just come in and be like, what are you doing? And I would not respond.
Nothing existed for you except just horses, just this playwright.
Yeah, well, like, because it was summer and I was living at home, I'd go up to the stables to sort out my own pony in the morning, come home, spend 6 hours on this project, have lunch, spend another 3 hours on this project, go back to the stables to do my own pony, and then go back home, have dinner, and I think I would normally spend the evening knitting with podcasts. But, you know, that was my break from the horses. The entire rest of my day was horse-related, and it was, like, the best time of my life.
Fake fan, you need a break from horses.
No, I didn't. Everyone needed a break from me. If there was another person in the room while I was doing this research, I would read out the whole newspaper article. Not because I needed to hear it read out loud or anything like that, just because I thought everyone else was as interested in this as me.
Yep, I know it well.
Which absolutely tracks. And eventually, like, I got to, I think it was like Christmas 1896 in the newspaper archives, which was a good, I think, over 100 pages of results. And I emailed the guy in charge and was just like, So I'm up to the end of 1896. What do I do?
Oh my god.
And he was just like, this was like 6 weeks later. This was in early September. I had about 2 weeks before I was going to leave for uni.
Yeah.
To do my MA. And he asked me to email him the spreadsheet, which I did. And then his response to seeing that was, stop. There is too much stuff here. You don't need to do any more. Like, because there was still several hundred pages more. She was in the UK from 1893 to 1906.
Yeah.
So I was 3 years in.
There's so much more information to dig out.
Because I had too much stuff.
Oh my god.
And he gave me instructions for the next part of the project.
Okay.
And then took away my login credentials.
Bad and naughty Jess is sent to the no access to the archive to atone for their sins.
I know. And, like, you can get an account as just a general member of the public without, like, being part of an academic institution, but you have to pay for it.
Oh, joy.
So he took away my login credentials, fully knowing that there was absolutely no way that I would be able to log back in because I was a student and therefore had no money.
Oh, rip.
And I'm still so mad about this. Like, could he not have just let me have it? Just, like, permanently.
Like one spark of just something. Everyone needs that one spark of something when they're a uni student, okay? Just let people have it.
But yeah, so they took away my login credentials. And at this point, I was sort of emailing him semi-regularly, and we had, like, Zoom calls and stuff to discuss the whole project.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I sort of complained about at length to this guy was that I couldn't find a way to read the play.
Oh, okay.
Because at this point I had read newspaper articles that mentioned the ponies by name, which, yeah.
is going to be a winner.
Yeah. Had read what was essentially a plot synopsis in a newspaper article. Had read things that were talking about pyrotechnics on stage, a realistic knife fight, this lady throwing a 150-pound man clean over her shoulder. And I was like, I want to know what the fuck going on with that play, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I want to read it. And this guy was just like, yeah, that sucks. It'd be really cool to read it. But, you know, when, like, you're listening to someone speak and you're really enthusiastic about something and you can very much tell that they are not actually that interested, which is something that I mostly don't pick up on. So the fact that I could pick up on it is just like, this is how not into it he really was. And he was the academic in charge of the project.
Oh, jeez.
And I just wanted to read the play with the horses who were named characters. Like, come on.
I have a question. What are the horses' names? What are the horses' names? I must know.
Their names are Wongi and Buckskin, and they own my entire heart. They are the heroes of the story. I am not kidding at all. They are the heroes of the story, and it is mentioned in text that they are.
Okay, so how did you get from not having access to the play and then basically becoming the writer for the Wikipedia article and having doubtlessly the most knowledge in the world, or at very least up there, about her?
Well, this is the thing, right? Because once I get my teeth into a topic and decide that I want to read a thing, I will find a way to read the thing. I'm like,
yes, it's a very endearing quality. I think it's really endearing, actually. It's like such a like fun trait for you to have.
Yeah, like, for all that my sort of running gag is that I 100% do not believe that anyone in postgrad research can do it without being neurodivergent, because no one can write a 16,000 word thesis about something without caring about it too much.
Yep.
for all that I wholeheartedly believe that, none of my friends, like on my MA course, could understand why the hell I was doing this to myself. Because I have gone to some extreme lengths to read things that most people do not have access to. And this was kind of the culmination of that whole thing. Because I was like halfway through my MA and I was with a friend and we were brainstorming thesis topics.
Mm-hmm.
Because my MA was in global literature.
Okay.
And I kind of said to my friend, you know, I know about this really cool lady who was a Native American, which means I could probably write about her. And she wrote a play with horses in, and there is definitely something I could do with that.
Okay, yeah.
And then I remembered that I had not and could not read the play, and also talked to my academic advisor at the time, and literally no other person at that university or anyone else that he knew of in academia had even heard of this lady.
Oh, that's the worst.
So just by virtue of having done the internship and therefore knowing a reasonable amount about the play without having read it, I had accidentally become like a leading expert. But I have read the play now. So by this point, I had sort of like accidentally triggered myself like a sleeper agent. And I was just like, even if I don't write about it as a thesis topic, I have to read this play now.
Yeah, for sure.
I had reminded myself that I was obsessed with this thing. I did a lot of Googling while I was probably not meant to be Googling that. I should have been writing my essays instead. And somehow, I think it was through a Tumblr post, which is like the least academically legit source for anything.
Yeah.
Managed to track down the fact that there is only one place in the world with a single copy of the play.
Oh my god.
There is one copy of this play left in existence, and it is in one place. And I was kind of like, ugh, okay, well, with my luck, it'll be in the archives of a university library in the Netherlands, like that other text that I wanted to read. But no, it's in the British Library.
Oh, that's much better, actually.
Yes! Because the nice thing about the British Library is that you can make a reader, like, account for free. So I went and made an account with the British Library as like a reader pass.
Yep. And
as part of doing that, you have to do this whole induction session on how to treat books and how to deal with like archival material without breaking it and all of that. And all their rules. And I now have a fancy British Library card with a very bad photo of me on it. So that was when I was up at uni. There are two reading rooms for the British Library. One is in London, and one is it's called like Bath Spa, but it's near Wetherby.
I was going to say, like, I'm pretty sure that's not. I'm pretty sure it's not in Bath.
It's not. It's like the other end of the country from Bath. So, because they told me that they could ship text from the main branch in London to the reading room near Wetherby.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. I can have it shipped there and read it before I go home for Christmas. That'll be nice.
Yeah.
Christmas present for me. No. That probably should have been my first clue that something was up with this.
Oh,
because they wouldn't ship it to Wetherby.
Okay.
And I was just like, okay, well, not the end of the world. I am going to London in December.
Yeah.
I was planning on going anyway. So I drove there, parked, paid the parking ticket, got 2 overgrounds and an underground to St Pancras to go to the British Library. I feel like I should mention that this was December of 2021.
Oh no!
We were averaging over 100,000 COVID cases per day.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it awfully.
My parents had told me multiple times, "Don't go."
Yep.
You will give yourself COVID for Christmas. This is stupid. Don't do it. And I was like, no, I am doing it. I will wear 2 masks. I will do a lateral flow test before. I will hand sanitize like no tomorrow. I will do a COVID test as soon as I come back. And then if I am COVID positive, I'll be out by Christmas. And they were like, fine. And the agreement was that I wouldn't take the train.
So you took the coach
to get there,
instead?
Which is why I drove.
Oh, you drove. Yeah.
But like, you know, the world didn't want me to go because that was the one and only time in my memory that we have had a fog warning in the fens.
Interesting. Like
an amber fog warning.
Oh,
in the
Jesus.
Fens. I think the only reason why we had a fog warning at all was because it like breached containment, and Essex and Suffolk had it as well.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do with it. So, but yeah, I drove all the way down the M11 in this fog that meant you couldn't really see more than about 10 meters in front of you.
Yeah.
So I beat the fog. I ignored COVID, the one and only time I did so.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the British Library to read this play. And the British Library has so many rules about reading things. Like, you're not allowed, depending on where you are and what you're reading, you might be allowed a laptop. I wasn't allowed a laptop. You're allowed a notebook and a pencil. You're not allowed to use pen. You're allowed a pencil, but you're not allowed a pencil sharpener.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed any food or drink. You have to wash your hands before you go in, and then not, and again until you leave, because they don't want you to have wet hands. These like, you weren't allowed to bring your bags or coats in.
Yeah.
You had to leave them in their like lockers, which were in the basement, and the reading room was on the 3rd floor, and they don't have a lift. So that was fun. But yeah, so I finally got to read this play, and it's so good. Like, okay, no, like with my critical goggles on, it's not. But like, I love it. I love it too much. It's perfect.
It's fine. You can love a thing. You can love a thing and hate a thing at the same time. My favorite story is All You Zombies. All the things
that are bad about it are just funny. So
yeah.
Like, the plot makes no sense.
Yep.
We'll talk about this later. But like, yeah, the plot makes no sense, and I love it so much. But yeah, so it is now me and the one other guy who created the Wikipedia page, and we are the world's leading experts on this playwright who no one has ever heard of.
You need to write like a book
really
or something.
I'm really excited that I get to share her with everyone, because she needs more love.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
like,
yeah.
I would definitely recommend that you at least write like a long article, if not, you know, a small indie book about her, because you know so much. Like, you really know a lot compared to like how little information there is about her out there. You have poured hours and years of your life into this.
Well, it's like a year and a half. It's only 2022. I have plans to go back to the British Library and copy out the play word for word, so that I have a copy of it.
Yes.
Because I had so much of a problem trying to find it.
Yeah.
That if I can, like, I'm 99% sure that the copyright has expired on this thing.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So I could very easily copy it down and stick it up on the internet somewhere so someone else can read it. But also, I just want a copy so that I can reread it. I do have history notes about her. Yep. But as we were sort of talking about before we started recording, I think, like, a lot of this comes from one academic article that was written a long time ago that doesn't really actually talk about the stuff that the other Wikipedia guy is claiming it does. So yeah. I'm not convinced by a lot of it. Yeah. But, so I'm mostly using the stuff that I have read myself, but that's all from newspaper articles. Yeah. And stuff that she told reporters in interviews. And as we will soon discover, she, I'm calling bullshit. So, yeah.
People lie in interviews, it just happens.
Yeah, well, it's just like, okay, so her name is Gowongo Mohawk. Her stage name was Carrie Mohawk, but like the only reason why she had that as a stage name is because we white people are rude about not white names.
I am intimately familiar.
I will not be using it.
Mm-hmm.
I will use her proper name, like a good, respectful person. The other guy on Wikipedia claims that her name translates as "I fear no one," but I cannot corroborate this at all. Outside of saying that she told multiple UK reporters that her name translates as "majestic palms," which is where we get to the "I call bullshit" thing, because I may not speak a single word of Seneca or Iroquoian, but palm trees are not native to New York. So I'm especially not in the 1890s, so I'm not entirely sure how that's really possible. So I will give the guy some credit. His translation of her name is probably more accurate than the one she told the British reporters, but his is not sourced. So, but yeah, so my theory is that she just liked to mess with white people by giving them fake translations of her name, which is so like valid. The single funniest possible thing she could have done in the UK, because we know absolutely nothing about Native Americans here. We're not, even like at the time when she was alive, people were like, "Oh, Native Americans, they're so cool. Look at the Buffalo Bill stuff." Like, that was all we knew. We don't know anything.
Very like weird noble savage-y vibes, but like
yeah.
Make it more American. Make it Americanized only in the sense that it's like based on like American stories and less.
It's a whole problem, and like obviously the Victorian era in the UK was like the height of the empire and imperialist thought and all of that. So a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, so she's born in 1860 in the Cattaraugus Reservation. I am god awful at pronouncing things. I'm very sorry if you live in New York and know what that's called, which is near Syracuse in upstate New York. Her dad was the medicine man, Dr. Alan Mohawk. Mm-hmm. Her mother's name was Lydia, but outside of that, we don't really know much about her very early life. What she did say in interviews is that she is descended from Red Jacket on her father's side, and he was a Seneca chief who fought in the Revolutionary War. He was a leader of the Six Nations Confederacy. He was a great orator, a public speaker. He gave a speech about the rights of Native American people to practice their own religion, specifically when a Christian missionary came to him, which is like,
that's the best time to do it.
Still famous today, and it's just, he is such a cool dude. He had like paintings done of him by white people.
Hell yes.
Which, like, this was in the 18th century, so that's like a huge deal.
Yeah.
You don't get paintings done of you in the 18th century unless you're really important. So that's like pretty cool. She's descended from him. She went to boarding school in Ohio. I describe it on the Wikipedia page as, quote, "went to boarding school in Ohio but didn't like it." And I also say this in my monster spreadsheet. But I believe from my memory what she actually said was that she ran away from boarding school twice. Because she hated it that much.
School universally sucks. It's just nobody enjoys themselves at school.
But yeah, she was university educated. She went to Ohio University.
Nice.
So that's very cool. After graduating, she went on to pursue acting as a sort of a passion project rather than a career at that point.
Yep.
She was acting alongside a lady called Louise Pomeroy, who was an American actress who specialised in Shakespeare and later went on to perform in Australia and at the Windsor Theatre, both of which were really famous at the time. Her father died at some point sources differ on when.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on who you believe her father was, because if you believe the other guy on Wikipedia, he was still alive and performing on the stage with her when she came to the UK, which, no. But yeah, so her father died. She says in newspaper reports that her father died. And after that, she wrote and debuted her first play. So she only had $50 to her name when she performed her play for the first time in the US. So she's like the ultimate self-starter if you actually believe that that's economically possible. Because, you know, capitalism.
Yeah.
So she did this whole poor starving artist eventually makes it big thing, which, like, good for her.
Glad she made
it. Especially considering she's like a Native American woman in a society that, like, punishes both of those things.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, women can't vote. Women can't choose who to marry, really, or own their own property without a man controlling the accounts or anything like that. And she's, like, out here making her own way, writing her own plays, earning her own money, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
It is.
And for all that she started with nothing, really, this play became so popular in America that she got bored. She got bored of performing in America to crowds that already knew it and knew what was going on. So she crossed the Atlantic and came to the UK.
As the kids might say, go boss.
But yeah, so this is the point where everything that I say now is stuff that I found out for myself.
Okay.
Because all the stuff that I know is stuff from when she was in the UK.
Okay.
Including all her backstory. Like, a lot of that is stuff that she said in interviews. But yeah, so because, you know, we autistic people love lists, I have a list of her skills.
Hell yeah.
That I have pulled out from my monster spreadsheet. She could sing, she could play the piano, the guitar, and the banjo. She was an amazing horse trainer and rider. She was fantastic at knife fighting, archery, wrestling, woodcraft. She threw a 155-pound man clean over her shoulder while on stage. She could dance.
I
and
think
she
I
could
might
shoot a rifle better than some of the US Army veterans that she acted alongside.
I think I might be gay for her. I think
I
I might be gay.
I was talking about her with my
gay
sister at one point, and I was just like, if I wasn't ace, my sister was just like, have you considered you might be a lesbian? The answer is no. I just want to be really good friends with her. I want to ask her so many questions.
Please throw me over your shoulder, ma'am, please.
She's just so cool. The British Museum, my beloved, they have, like, postcards and photos and stuff. Like, they made postcards of her because she was so popular here.
I find it, like, so sad with, like, playwrights like Gowongo Mohawk, that all we have are references in articles that never really see the light of day. And we never hear more about their plays, and there's a chance that we'll never even know what their play was about. We'll just have, like, this vague idea that they existed and they created something? Like,
yeah.
And it's I don't know, it gets to me. It gets to me a lot of all this, like, lost art that hasn't been preserved properly, that we cannot look back on and be like, this was really cool. Because we just don't have it.
Part of the reason why I got so into it, like, aside from the horses, was just that, like, you know, I wanted to get to the bottom of the mystery. I wanted to find where the trail ended and know that I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
So she went to the UK and started this tour, and this was in 1893. She started off in Liverpool. That was where the play was first performed. And at some point during her UK tour, She married a guy named Charles W. Charles.
I'm sorry, Charles W. Charles?
I know, what a name. He's pretty cool in his own right. She's a very connected lady. So he fought for General Custer in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
That's the United States, not the Confederacy.
Yeah.
She did not marry a Confederate. She married a good guy. So he was like the manager of the touring crew and also acted in it.
Yeah.
And the reason why we know that they got married during the UK tour, because I didn't read through enough of the articles to get to that point, because they took away my newspaper archive access.
God damn them.
But the reason why I know that they got married during this UK tour was because there were rumours in the papers very, very early on in the UK tour that they were getting very cozy.
Oh.
And there were rumours that they were together, but not married yet. Which, like, that's kind of wild. Like, she'd been in the UK for less than a month at this point, and there were already gossip columns about her. But yeah, so her UK tour lasted for a fair few years. At one point, I skipped ahead to the very last page of newspaper search results, and it was dated 1906.
Okay.
Which means over 10 years. I'm not sure if those are all consecutive, because obviously I stopped at 1896.
Yeah.
But there were like at least 3 years of constant touring.
That's like really impressive. I think I'd be driven up
impressive.
the wall.
And as far as I am aware, she did stay in the UK until 1906. Like, she might have returned to the US at some point, but I don't think it was for more than a year. So she was in the UK for most, if not all, of that 10-year period.
Yeah.
She did return to the US after that date, because there isn't another mention of her in the UK. And she died at the age of 63 in 1924, and she is buried in the Edgewater Cemetery, which is in New Jersey. But yeah, so that's like a brief rundown of her life. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is like stuff I've taken from the news articles or stuff the other guys put on Wikipedia, because there's no more information that can be found anywhere that is actually verifiable by historical sources. And what you're getting in the podcast is probably more than anyone else could reasonably find. Which is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
So as much as newspapers are not very reliable, there's like not really any other sources we can use, because there's nothing else that we really know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Gowongo Mohawk. Coolest of cool ladies. I am obsessed with her. I want to be her friend. Have an in-depth discussion about her life, because she is so cool.
Yeah. And
not even like an I aspire to be like you kind of way. Like, I just genuinely have so many questions.
Yeah, for sure.
I would not want to be her, because, you know, she's too cool for me. But I do just find her fascinating. I want to know everything about her, and unfortunately I can't. I want to have a time machine just so I can go back in time and talk to her. But yeah. So I think maybe it is time to talk about the play.
Yes, I'm excited.
Yeah. So I've mentioned it several times.
Yes.
Mostly regarding the horses.
Yes, you have.
It's a pretty cool play in its own right. So, like, the plot is kind of not great. I will admit that. Reviewers in the newspapers said that the plot was like the weakest part and that it was uninspired and derivative and all that stuff that reviewers like to say because they have to say bad things about it sometimes.
Yep.
But like, for all that, having read it, I do think that it's kind of contrived sometimes. It is also utter nonsense to the point where I wasn't always sure what was going on. It's just like it's insane.
Okay.
There are horses. There are horses on stage.
That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, I thought that too. There are pyrotechnics.
That seems like an even worse with horses on stage.
Yes, at the same time, I was surprised by this too.
Oh God.
There are real knife fights.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
With real knives.
It's still pretty cool. It's dangerous, but it's cool.
Yeah, people did get injured.
Yep.
It has music and dancing. It has scenery that was specially imported. It had an all-American cast and crew. So basically it was like everything that a Victorian audience looking for something exotic and a poor grad student 120 years later could possibly ask for in a play. And Gowongo Mohawk wrote this play herself because she couldn't find any plays at the time that she could really see herself in.
Yeah.
Like, that is on the record her justification for writing this play. And it's a bit of a parody of those Buffalo Bill Wild West acts that were really popular at the time, which is kind of why sometimes it's a bit nonsensical.
Yeah.
Because it's meant to just be fun. It's not really meant to be serious.
I mean, like, the thing as well with parodying a lot of the time, it's going to be nonsensical because the thing that you're parodying doesn't make sense to begin with anyway. So, like, if you're playing up the fact that it's stupid, of course it's going to make zero sense. Of course it's, like, going to have, like, no real sense of, like, plot or structure because it's all dumb. It's supposed to make you look at the original thing and go, oh, that's stupid.
The thing is, though, is that, like, being a literature student who, like, dual honours creative writing, I have a lot of knowledge about genre and, like, plot structure and stuff. And, like, the basic plot does make sense.
Yeah.
It does. It's all there. It's the rest of it that just is the most extra thing I've ever read in my life and is absolute nonsense. But yeah, so it's a pretty unique play. It treats the Native American characters really respectfully, which, written by a Native American woman, so that's why.
I would be very concerned if she wrote it and treated the Native American characters and actors poorly. I would be very concerned about that.
Like, especially, like, when you're looking at commercial theatre...
Yeah.
You might, like, even though she is...
Yeah, you kind of just
American,
have to do what's with the trends.
To not treat them so well, because that's what sells.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course there are bits that don't hold up that well. There's some racism in there, specifically against the African American and Irish characters, because, it is made in America.
Yep.
Just after the Civil War, when the Jim Crow laws were in full swing, there was a lot of anti-Irish racism and all of that kind of stuff. So, there is some of that does come up in the play. But, like, one of the things that I did write down in my notes while I was reading the play was that the black character speaks in African-American vernacular English.
Nice.
And there are slurs used, but only by the black characters.
Okay.
So, like, he will refer to himself as, like, a Negro.
Yeah.
Which is expected at the time. And there are other slurs that he uses, but he uses them for himself.
Yeah.
Or the other black servant uses them for herself.
Yeah.
The white landowners don't call them those names.
Yeah.
which is pretty subversive now.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure. Like,
but like the fact that it's not there,
yeah, that's notable.
and it happens like across the board. Like the white characters treat their black servants quite respectfully. They treat their Native American neighbors quite respectfully.
Yeah.
Which, I think is mostly just reflective of the fact that it was written by a Native American woman.
Yeah.
Because like, even if you didn't know that Gowongo Mohawk was a Native American, you could probably tell that it was written by someone who was at least very, very close with actual Native Americans, just by the things that are said, how certain details are handled, and stuff like that. And like, we haven't even got into like all the details yet. Like, I have quotes that I wrote down.
Ooh.
But yeah, like before I get into it too much, you should know that Gowongo Mohawk played the main character.
Okay.
In the play. The main character in the play was a man.
Nice.
So she was cross-dressing in this play for over 10 years. And like, I hadn't read the play at this point, but reading the news articles and reading that, she was playing a man and she is described as like very masculine, just like in her manner. And I'm like, she gives me very queer vibes, but I'm not quite sure of the flavor of the vibe.
Yep.
And like, you can't really make assumptions about sexuality and gender identity in a time when that terminology didn't exist. But I would probably say that there was at least something going on there.
Yeah.
So that is very cool. But yeah, so the play was called Weptonnoma, the Indian Mail Carrier, and it's a smash hit on both sides of the Atlantic, which is very cool for her. I'm pretty sure most of this, especially in the UK, was because it's a very novel idea, and that kind of thing was very popular. But also, play is not selling out every night for over a decade in one very small country like the UK just because of that.
Yeah.
Like, the novelty has to wear off eventually. So the fact that it was that popular for that long is very cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, one of the things that came up so often in these newspaper articles was that there wasn't another play being performed in the UK like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that it, like, basically hasn't survived to the modern day, I found quite surprising.
Yeah. I mean,
just because you'd think if it was that popular and that unique...
If it had, like, such a big impact on people and not necessarily society or the way they viewed it, although, like, I doubtlessly believe that her art has had a profound effect on people and their outlook on Native American people, not just characters, but people, and how they view Native American people.
Yeah.
But, like, beyond that, 10 years? Like, how is that? How? That doesn't make any sense. Why would it just suddenly vanish like that?
I know, and it's just like, what? There is, from what I have seen, there is an IMDb page for a black and white silent movie of it.
Okay.
Made in the US. But obviously, because it's black and white and a silent movie,
yeah,
it's obviously very, very old.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is any way to actually watch it anymore. There is not a trailer attached to the IMDb page. There's like one screen grab of it.
Especially because, like, they would just record over that film again, so...
Yeah. So, like, I'm pretty sure there is absolutely no way to visually see any of it. But, yeah, so the fact that it didn't really survive is, I think, is really sad, obviously, and it's also quite surprising, because, yeah, it was very, not, like, influential in a cultural sense, but, like, it was so popular.
Yeah.
That I'm quite surprised. But yeah, so from here on out, I'm going to put a spoiler warning in place. Yes, the play is over 130 years old. yes, people will still probably be butthurt about it if I don't put a spoiler warning in
Yeah,
place.
that's true. That's fair, yeah.
Because that is what people are like. So if you are listening to this at home and thinking, I want to go read this play from what little I have said already, first of all, good luck to you, and please let me know what you think when you read it. And second of all, I dare you, go do it. Go make a British Library membership, which, you know, is very hard if you don't live in the UK. Spend hours getting told information you already know because you have a degree in literature and have been to an archive before. Then travel halfway across the country, risk getting the plague, and sit in a room for several hours with no food or water or electronics allowed so that you can read a play that I'm fully capable of talking to you about like a normal person. But yeah, so if you intend to do all of that and care about spoilers, then don't listen to the rest of this episode. If you don't mind getting spoiled for a 130-year-old play, we shall continue.
Good news, I don't mind.
Good, because I'm not going to shut up now. So here we go. Let's talk about Webtonoma. So our characters are as follows. There's a lot of names. I apologise. Webtonoma, who is our titular character. He is a mail carrier, hence the Indian male character. He is described via other characters that appear as, quote, the noblest, bravest, most gentlemanly of men.
Aww.
Reminder that Gowongo Mohawk played this character for the play's entire run on both sides of the Atlantic and wrote the play.
Yeah.
Make of that what you will. Next on our list is Chief Ganagua, who is Webtonoma's father and chief of the tribe. The tribe goes unnamed in the play. They are just a Native American tribe. He was played by the real-life Chief Ganagua, and the other guy on Wikipedia says that guy is her dad.
Okay.
That's probably not true because, you know, he's still alive at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, history do be murky sometimes, so who knows. Yeah, anyway, so poor old Chief Ganagua is a wise and kindly old man who falls prey to the age-old trope of father figure / mentor dies violently to kickstart the plot.
Oh, delightful.
And we don't get to see him for very long, but I love him. And then we have Colonel Stockton, who is a local landowner, white, obviously.
Yep.
Who earned his wealth through the army. He's on very good terms with the local native tribe, and he was played by Gowongo Mohawk's husband. If you remember him, his name is Charles W. Charles.
What a British name, Charles W. Charles.
I know, and honestly, like, I was so confused for a good few days the first time I saw that name, because they forget the W in most of the newspaper articles. So it's just Charles Charles.
This is my son, Charles Charles.
That's a typo. But yeah, so Colonel Stockton has a daughter whose name is Nellie. She is Webtonoma's romantic interest in the play, and does actually have a personality. She is...
Miracle.
I love her. Oh my god, we'll get to this later. And Captain Franklin, who is his nephew, and his main character trait is that he is desperately in need of money at all times, which is a mood, honestly.
Yeah, cost of living crisis, hell yeah.
And last but not least of our principal human characters, because as we've already mentioned, the ponies are also a character. A character? 2 characters, there's 2 of them. Anyway, our last human character is Banish Joe. He is the villain of the story. And he spends half the play disguised as various friends of Franklin, but is somehow never recognised as being the same person. Which is where the plot starts to get a bit ridiculous. So, in terms of plot, we open on a beautiful sunny day And Colonel Stockton is being visited by his nephew, Captain Franklin, and Spanish Joe. Franklin needs to ask for more money because he has run out again, and also has done something very bad and stupid that he won't really talk about.
Oh,
I don't think he ever actually says what it is that he's done that is really bad and stupid. But it's bad enough that he's now being blackmailed, because if his superiors in the army find out about it, he's screwed.
Uh-oh.
Basically. But yeah, so he needs funds to pay off his blackmailer and also, survive. This is where the fact that he needs money as a mood ends, because, I have not done something stupid that means I need to pay someone who's blackmailing me.
I have never been blackmailed, no.
Yeah. But yeah, he also intends to introduce Spanish Joe to his uncle in what is possibly the gayest interactions you could possibly have on stage in Victorian England. I am not joking. He is literally like, I want to introduce him into my uncle's family. Into my uncle's family is a direct quote that I wrote down and then wrote, is this gay, next to it.
It sounds like it.
To my uncle and family, it is into my family.
That sounds, like, I think that sounds,
when you
that
get
sounds a little
married.
gay. That sounds a little gay. That does sound a little gay, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, this is like the least of it, to be honest. I remember it being like pretty much like that the whole way through, every time they interact.
Oh my god.
It's incredibly gay, and I'm just like, what is going on? This is Victorian England. Anyway, Colonel Stockton decides not to give him any money, because his black servants have half a brain cell, and he listens to them when they very wisely bring up that this is the latest in a long stream of instances of him asking for money, and he needs to learn to balance his finances by himself because he's an adult.
Yeah.
And shouldn't be wasting his fortune. So he tells his nephew, "You're not getting the money this time. You can sort it out yourself. You're an adult. Just stop getting into fights, you idiot."
Mm-hmm.
And Captain Franklin gets really angry and he storms off about it. And Spanish Joe is just chatting to the servants outside and is generally being kind of dodgy. Like, because I went into this knowing basically what the plot was. I read this and I was like, are they being that obvious about it? But like, he was just being friendly, to everyone on stage. I'm not sure if it's dramatic irony or not. If you already know the plot from a newspaper article. But yeah, so then Weptonoma and the other Native American characters are introduced in the most extra way possible. Like, Weptonema literally rides in on a horse with a piece of music called "Oh My Gallant Steed" playing in the background. I do not know this song because, again, that is another thing that has not survived to the modern day. And that quote about him being the noblest, bravest, most gentlemanly of men. And everyone is just like, oh, he's so cool. I wish I had his horse. But yeah, there's music playing. Everything's going on. No pyrotechnics yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet. But like everything else, it's happening. So like he's a Mary Sue character before the concept existed, really.
Yeah.
Which like, good on her. Write your Mary Sue characters. Anyway. So there's a big feast because they're celebrating a good cattle drive, and they celebrate the native traditions and religions alongside the white traditions and religions.
Okay.
Which is really cool, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Coexistence.
So yeah, they talk about like the great Manitou and like have good hunting, that kind of thing, and it's like it's great.
Yeah,
I love it. So at this feast, Colonel Stockton and his nephew argue again about money, obviously. And we get this quote. And I am not joking, I swear. I took notes the whole way through reading this play. And I'm reading this from my notebook right now. And this quote says, "Boys will be boys."
Oh, no thank you.
This play, this was on page 20. I even wrote down what page number it was.
What is this in reference to?
This was written in 1893.
What is this in reference to? Like, what? About, like, his gambling?
It's in reference to Franklin getting in a load of fights.
Oh, okay.
There's another quote about how young men, I think, are not considered a thoroughbred nowadays until he has been in 2 or 3 disreputable scrapes. And then we get the "boys will be boys" line.
Oh my god, I've been a thoroughbred since. I think I've been a thoroughbred since I was a teen.
That's normal. That's what boys do. But yeah, this was in 1893. So absolutely nothing has changed.
Yep, no. Everything is exactly the same. I'm really sad to report that, like, 200 years later, 150, 200 years later, if anything, the internet may have made it worse. So...
Yeah. Yeah. So, unfortunately, boys are still boys.
Yeah.
And we still hear the exact quote, "Boys will be boys."
Instead of something like...
justifying that kind of behaviour.
Instead of what they should be saying, which is, boys will be held accountable for their actions, or else. Like...
Exactly. So the next day, there is a stampede, a cattle stampede, and Weptonoma saves Nellie Stockton's life.
Ooh, that's a good start to a relationship.
Continuing the Mary Sue character. Any kind of heroic action, it's him.
Yeah.
Except when the horses are the heroes. They are the heroes of the story. So Colonel Stockton gives Weptonoma the role of mail carrier as a reward for saving her life.
Okay.
And Nellie is all, the whole stereotypical, like, fainting maiden thing about him. And it's not even, like, subtle that she's absolutely obsessed with him.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, very in love with him. And it's just, like, interracial marriage was still illegal.
Yeah.
At that time. So, it's scattered throughout this whole thing, all these little things that are kind of subversive.
Yeah.
But they're always presented in a way that makes people go like, "Oh, yes, this is very cool." Actually.
Yeah, like,
this is definitely normal. It's totally normal for a girl to get saved by a guy and then fall in love with him. Like, it doesn't matter that he's a Native American, because...
Yeah, like, it's framed in such a way that, like, if you disagree with it, you're, like, failing at the first hurdle. You really are. You're, like, you've just, like, instead of jumping, you've just decided to, like, fall face first onto the hurdle and then scream about the fact a hurdle was in your way. Like, there is no... Like, it presents it in such a nice, benign way that, it seems absurd to go against it, which I think is a really good piece of writing. Yeah,
and it's like, she's so clever about it.
Yeah.
I think, because she's portraying it in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if it was just presented as, like, without that random stampede.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really make sense in terms of plot that it happens. But if she didn't present it with that first, and just had this random white girl was, like, obsessed with this Native American guy and in love with him and wanted to marry him and all that, everyone would just be kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
But it makes sense because he saved her life. He's a heroic character. You're meant to empathize with him and, like, think that he's really cool.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So I think it's just it's very clever that she sort of plugs all these little things in the way that she does. But yeah, so the problem, we have our inciting incident now.
Okay.
Spanish Joe is knocking about, and he's also in love with Nellie.
Uh-oh.
Somehow, even though they have literally never spoken face to face.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And he's kind of like, I'm gonna murder that pesky Wepton no more. And because it is night time, and they are all in tents sleeping, he accidentally kills our good old friend Chief Ganagua,
Oh,
who
no.
has barely had any lines at this point.
Oh no.
And he has a very moving speech with Wepton Noma, who obviously is his son, just before he dies. And this is where the genre shifts from wacky hijinks on a ranch with some Native Americans in the background to like an actual serious plot.
Yeah.
And this is where I was like, oh, I know how this is going to go down. We're in a revenge plot.
Ooh.
But yeah, so one of the things that I sort of glossed over the whole thing with Spanish Joe and Nellie. He plotted with Captain Franklin, who is Nellie's cousin, to kidnap Nellie and marry her.
Okay. Well.
Because he's a dick.
Yep.
But he's like thwarted by Weptonoma. So he saved Nellie's life again the second time in like one day. And at this point Nellie is kind of just like, I'm in love with him. I'm not gonna marry you, I'm gonna marry him instead. And Joe gets really jealous about it. And shoots his father instead by accident. And yeah, Weptonoma swears vengeance on the man who killed his father because he doesn't know who it is. He doesn't know it's Spanish Joe. He was just like sleeping, and then this guy just shoots into his tent and kills his dad. Like he has no idea who did it. And another, like, just to recap, he was given the post of mail carrier that day.
He had a busy day.
He immediately abandons it.
Oh god.
To go and chase down whoever killed his father. Very Inigo Montoya.
Yep, I was thinking about that earlier.
But yeah, so then we have a time skip. And several years later, he returns from chasing down bandits, thinking that any one of them could be the guy who killed his dad, and agrees reluctantly to finally take the job that he was offered by Colonel Stockton.
Hooray, he's finally the male guy.
I know! And around the same time, Spanish Joe returns.
Oh, for God's sake.
He's still planning to kill Wepton Noma. But before this, he enters Colonel Stockton's house, disguised as another friend of Captain Franklin's, and attempts to steal some money from his desk, for no apparent reason. Wepton Noma is in the house at the time and stops him, but Spanish Joe is able to escape. So he doesn't steal any money, but he does get away. And everyone is kind of like, who is this man who just randomly broke into Colonel Stockton's house? Doesn't realise that it's Spanish Joe. I think he was disguised as a doctor originally. He was like a doctor friend of Captain Franklin's, despite the fact that at no point does he ever demonstrate any medical skill. And this happens several times. He shows up in disguise and no one notices.
I love that sort of hijinks in theatre. I really do.
It's brilliant. As much as like it doesn't really make sense, and like this kind of bit of the plot where he just shows up and tries to steal money just because it feels kind of contrived, and it feels like they're trying to make him into even more of a villain than he already is.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that the whole fact that he just keeps showing up disguised as people and no one notices. I do think it's quite good because it's a revenge plot.
Yeah.
It's really dark and grim, but that makes it funny.
If you this is,
and it's funny in a way that doesn't rely on comic relief characters.
Yeah.
And there are comic relief characters, like a lot of the servants are comic relief characters. But all of the characters have their moment of like heroism, except for Spanish Joe.
Spanish Joe just sucks.
Yeah, he's just evil. He's just bad. So except for him, everyone has like a moment of heroism.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact she just puts in these little running gags that make things funny, which I just think is great. I love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, because there's the risk of going like way too deep and dark. Like,
yeah, and no one wants that, especially when you started off with all these wacky hijinks.
Yeah,
it's just very low key. It's just this guy wants some money, like you know.
This guy wants some money. There's a stampede. Now it's a romance. Yeah.
But yeah, so after this, because Webtonoma does not realize that it's Spanish Joe, he has suspicions, but he doesn't know. He's willing to give this guy the benefit of the doubt and just assume that it's a random guy and not like track him down and kill him. So Webtonoma is given a really important mail carrying assignment.
Okay.
And I don't think they actually ever say what it is that he's carrying, just that it's really important. And Spanish Joe's newest plan is to waylay him.
Okay.
Spanish Joe has a plan to take advantage of Webtonoma's trusting nature.
Of course he does.
By poisoning his drink when he stops at... I guess like the modern day UK equivalent would be a service station.
Yeah.
But when you stop on the way and you need a drink and you need a meal and you need to stop for the night sort of thing. So he's going to poison his drink, steal the mail, and then kill Webtonoma. And he's got some dudes that he has recruited for his plan.
Okay.
Whose names I did not write down.
Just not important.
Stupid. So yeah, and to begin with, this goes very well, right? Like he manages to poison Webtonoma.
Mm-hmm.
So that he's done that. That worked. Great. But Webtonoma realizes he's been poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not stupid.
Yeah.
And he gives the mail to his horse, Wongi, for safekeeping.
Aww.
Which I too would trust my horse with my life. And he kind of like lays down next to his horse and kind of like pats him and just goes like, "You'll protect me," sort of thing.
Aww.
Like, I know that I've been poisoned, but you'll protect the mail. You'll look after me while I'm sleeping, kind of thing.
That's so cute.
Spanish Joe's accomplice has witnessed this whole thing and has talked to Webtonoma exactly once and has decided that actually this guy seems pretty cool and he likes him a lot better than Spanish Joe. He switched sides and goes and finds some people who can help, who turn out to be two of Colonel Stockton's servants, and they are called Gary and Sam. And they discover that Webtonoma is in trouble, and they're still at Colonel Stockton's homestead at this point. And I feel like I should mention that this is where Nellie grows a spine and has a personality for once. Because she hears about this and just goes straight to murder. We have to kill Spanish Joe. He doesn't deserve to live. He is dared to hurt my beloved Webtonoma. He is the most evil person to ever exist on Earth, and we need to kill him. I will go with you and kill him if I have to. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're all just like, absolutely not, you're staying at home. But she's very cool in this moment. She just finds out that he's in trouble and just straight to murder, as she should.
What I'm getting so far of the moral of this story is that if you are kind to your horses, people will like you more. And if you're Spanish Joe, nobody likes you.
Yes.
So basically, don't be Spanish Joe and be nice to your horses and love them very much. And that's the moral of the story so far.
Exactly.
Also, you should murder the whoever tries to kill your beloved. It's totally fair game to try to kill them in return.
And I mean, to be fair, she is entirely justified because he also tried to kidnap her.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
And like, fully intended to just
and like this is several
her and marry
years
her without her consent.
Yeah.
Like, you know. So she absolutely deserves to be the one to kill him, but she doesn't get to. Unfortunately.
Tragedy. Does the horse get to kill him instead? Wait, no. Don't tell me. We're getting there.
Gary and Sam and Spanish Joe's ex-accomplice go to find Weptonoma and save him. And this is where the horses become the hero of the story. Because Spanish Joe has decided to kill Weptonoma while he's sleeping.
Okay.
Because, you know, he's been poisoned and can't fight back. Except he very much misjudges the situation.
Okay.
Because, reminder, Weptonoma went to sleep next to his horse.
Yes.
His horse's name is Wongi, and he also carries the mail. And Wongi fights off Spanish Joe.
Oh, yeah.
By himself.
Hell yeah.
I am so proud of him.
Superhero horse.
And according to an interview that Gowongo Mohawk did with the UK press, this pony, the guy who played Spanish Joe was like legitimately terrified of Wongi the pony.
Oh no.
Because Wongi the pony got so into his role that he like actually like fought him.
Oh
like,
no.
Real life. Like this was not play acting anymore. This was like he actually tried to kill him.
Oh my god.
On stage. And obviously, you know, Weptonoma, the character, is sleeping off this poison and doesn't know that Wongi is trying to fight off Spanish Joe, so Gowongo Mohawk, who actually trained the pony, can't do anything about it. Because that would break the illusion. But yeah, so Wongi fights off Spanish Joe.
Very proud of the horse. Go Wongi.
Like a hero.
Yep.
I am obsessed with these horses. So Spanish Joe runs away because he is a coward.
Yeah.
Before he can be discovered, Gary and Sam show up to help Weptonoma get home.
Okay.
And this is where I have written down this one quote, because Weptonoma is kind of like very woozy from this poison and everything. And Sam and Gary are kind of like, well, where's the mail? Because Spanish Joe is trying to steal the mail.
Yeah.
That's really important for some reason. And Weptonoma is kind of like, oh, Wongi has it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And Gary is just like, well, how can a horse take care of lettuce? Because, you know, no one ever believes in the horses. And my note next to that is, well, you're just fucking stupid, Gary. If you know a horse, you know that they're going to take care of the mail if you give it to them.
Horses are weirdly protective over the weirdest things. Like
they are. Like horses are really smart. Basically, Wongi is the hero of the story. It's not Weptonoma. Weptonoma would be dead if it wasn't for Wongi. And that would be bad because later that evening there is a final standoff.
Okay.
Between Weptonoma and Spanish Joe. Because, you know, all the big revenge plays have a final standoff, but they have a fight.
Yes.
And this is where the big knife fight happens.
Hell yeah.
The big knife fight is in Act 5. The one with real knives where people get injured. There is fire on stage. There are multiple explosions. I believe the horses are still on stage at this point. And I think this is not the point where Gowongo Mohawk throws the man playing Spanish Joe over her shoulder. That was in Act 3. I think that is earlier. But there is a knife fight and a big wrestling match and everything, and there's fire and there's explosions and it's all very dramatic. And Spanish Joe is defeated.
At
There are
last.
no stage directions that say how.
He is just defeated.
He is just defeated. And that is the end of the play. There is no reference of what happens after that. We don't know if Nellie and Wepton no Mar get married, even know if Spanish Joe goes to jail.
Spanish Joe might just be dead.
He is just defeated. He is probably dead.
Yeah.
That, you know, there was that's the whole point of the play. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, he is defeated, and this is why I firmly believe that the horses are the heroes, because if Wongi had not fought off Spanish Joe and made him run away, Wepton Noma would never have been rescued.
Yeah.
By the servants, and there would not have been that final standoff.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much right. Like, that's...
Yeah.
The horses... Wongi is the hero of this story.
He absolutely is. And that is why this is my favourite play of all time. Like, you know, this trumps 12th Night.
Yeah.
Which I adore. This trumps Measure for Measure with early modern ace icon Isabella. Like, this is hands down my favourite play of all time. And it is absolute nonsense.
That is a glowing review.
Half the fight scenes are just excuses for her to show off. And, like, put in loads of, like, special effects and have the horses doing crazy stunts and stuff like that. Like, the whole thing is just a mess. The only consistent plot is that it is technically a revenge plot. But it's really ambiguous as to whether he actually succeeds in ending his blood feud against Spanish Joe. Like, he's defeated, but it doesn't say whether he dies or not.
I really like that, honestly.
But yeah, I quite like that it's ambiguous. And it's like, the whole thing is kind of, like, the fact that Nellie Stockton is in love with him, that's really contrived.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of it is just an excuse for Gowongo Mohawk to be the hero of her own story, because she doesn't get to be normally. And, like, good for her, to be honest. But this, for all its faults, the reason why this play is my favourite play of all time is because of the horses.
That is so on brand. I love that for you.
You couldn't perform this nowadays because I don't think you could get a horse on stage.
No, that's like, you said about the horses. You said about the horses, and I was just suddenly, like, filled with dread. Like, around pyrotechnics as well. Like, that's a bad combination.
Yeah, I mean, she was just a god-tier horse trainer.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we talk about, like, Monty Roberts and all the big racehorse trainers and the dressage riders and whoever it is that trains the police horses to literally jump through hoops of fire. They used to go and do a display at Olympia every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoever trains all the horses to do that, like, they're great. Gowongo Mohawk single-handedly trumps all of them.
Yes.
On, like, horse training prestige. Because she managed to train 2 horses, at least, because there are 2 of them,
mm-hmm.
to exist in show business in, like, normal conventional theatres in the UK. Like, this isn't, like, done in a circus tent.
Yeah.
This is done in, like, a proper theatre. Like a music hall type theatre. With, like, the wings and behind the stage and, like, the whole, all the stuff underneath.
Yeah.
Trapdoors and things. So not only does she have to try and figure out a way to get them to cope with being on stage, she has to figure out a way to get them to deal with fire, with knife fights, with explosions, with people acting really weirdly around them, because horses get freaked out by people acting weirdly. Like, they get used to how you behave, and if you behave differently to that, they get concerned. And when they get worried, they tend to do stupid things.
Horses have approximately half a brain cell and is just dedicated towards anxiety.
Yeah, horses are a constant mood for me.
Yeah.
Because they are couches with legs and just, like, diagnostically improbable levels of anxiety. Like, no single person in existence is as stressed 24/7 as a horse.
Yeah.
Any horse, even the chillest of horses, is more stressed than the most stressed person on the planet.
Which is
Guaranteed.
impressive. Considering how stressed most people are, that's really impressive.
They just have massive levels of anxiety. So the fact that she's managed to train them to do all these stunts. And, like, I have a lot of respect for people who train horses to do movie
Yeah.
stuff.
Because that seems hard
Because
enough.
That's really hard. And if they do something wrong in that, they can CGI it.
Yeah.
If those horses on stage are not acting, like in the fight scene, right, where Wongi fights off Spanish Joe, if that horse is not acting like he wants to kill that man,
Yeah.
it's going to be really obvious. If he's expecting a treat and has his ears pricked and is like, "Ooh, this is fun," it's going to be really obvious.
Yeah.
Because this is a period where people don't have cars. If you're traveling via something to do with a horse, probably.
Yeah.
So people know a lot more about how horses behave. They know when a horse is happy. So if that horse is just acting and pretending and not, like, fully committed to the bit, then they're going to know about it, especially in, like, the front row seat.
Yeah.
So that horse has to be well trained enough to, like, actively look like he wants to kill a man.
While not actually killing a man.
Yeah.
Because that's
And
the
that
important
takes a lot
part
of
on top of
restraint
that as well. Like, it's important to, like, that combo of, you need to look like you want him dead, but don't actually do it. Don't do it. And that's kind of hard to, like, explain to a horse.
It's really easy for horses to kill people.
Yeah.
They do it by accident.
All the time.
So the fact that she has to train him to look like he's trying to kill a man without actually killing a man is...
yeah, it's really impressive.
It's really difficult, and I have so much respect for her, and I want to ask her how she did it. To be fair, that pony probably did actually want to kill that man.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah.
Because
Somewhere
I'm pretty
along the line.
sure she mentions at one point that, like, because Spanish Joe is one of about 3 roles in the play where the actor who plays him changes.
Yeah.
Across the UK tour. He's one of the only roles where the actor is British. Which is like how they can do it.
Yeah.
Because Sam and Matilda, who is Nellie's, like, nanny,
Yeah.
are black Americans.
Yes.
Gary is Irish.
Yep.
So, or like Irish American. So the original guy was American as well, and then I think his actor changed to someone else who was presumably Irish. And Nellie Stockton, the actress, changed a couple of times. But other than that, every single actor in the tour is the same the whole way through. Spanish Joe changes, and the reason why one of the Spanish Joe actors quit was because the horse, like, he forgot that the horse wasn't trying to kill him.
Oh no.
And
no.
Got injured by the horse at one point on stage or like in practice, and was like, "I've had enough. I can't deal with this horse trying to kill me every day."
Yeah.
And he quit.
Fair enough.
How much it was that the horse was holding back, and how much of it was that the guy was very good at dodging. But yeah, she's fantastic horse trainer. But yeah, most of the actors didn't change the whole time. Chief Ganagua, who played himself in the play, he got married in the UK.
Oh, nice.
So Gowongo Mohawk was not the only one to get married while on tour. He got married to someone, to this lady in the UK, literally like just in the like county office.
Yeah.
This is from an article in the Nottingham Evening Post in May of 1895.
Mm-hmm.
So Chief Ganagua, a member of Mohawk's company, married a lady of English birth. That is all they say. They don't say her name.
Okay.
So Chief Ganagua, they say in this article, is of the Onondaga tribe of the Six Nations, which is New York near Syracuse. So part of that same sort of cluster of tribes that Gowongo Mohawk is from. And he has reportedly been involved in many rebellions against the federal government and carries many scars from these battles. And what's really nice is that the day he got married, like the night of their wedding, the lady that he got married to came up on stage with him.
Aww.
And they all got like a congratulations from the cast.
Aww. So
which
cute.
is very sweet. But yeah, they went all over the UK. She had a dog with her as well. The dog did not appear on stage, but she had a dog. And like the whole time it's all like they're getting praised for being really like novel, being something really new and exotic, and being like an accurate portrayal of Indian life and life in like the Wild West in America. But there's a quote in the play where it like directly addresses racism, I guess.
Okay.
And it's a little bit sarcastic, and I think it's very cool. So Weptonoma is the one who says it. We Indians, savages as some of the civilized whites call us, think nothing of doing a little service like that, and by which he is referring to risking his life for others. This is like just after when he saves Nellie Stockton's life. And it's the sort of quote that I think is meant to gain sympathy for like current Native Americans as well as the characters on stage. They're meant to take that quote and go, we call these people savages, but like actually they're really noble. They're really like, they're brought up to be good people and have like good values, even if they're not necessarily like Christian values. They're still things that we admire in people. Like we should probably treat them better than we do. And like, not that I think it probably had much of an impact in the UK.
Like, even if it changed one person's mind, it's worth it.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, she's writing this story that's meant to be representative of not just herself, but also like her people more generally. And she does a pretty good job of it, really, especially just from the amount of influence this sort of had on like society generally. The fact that it the only copy exists in the UK, I think, is quite weird.
Yeah. Because
America has quite a lot of record of Native American literature.
Yeah.
The fact that it hasn't been retained in America is quite, like, I keep saying that it's surprising that no one's heard of it, and it's surprising that it hasn't been kept anywhere, but it genuinely is. Like, we have this huge repertoire of, I say huge, obviously the writings of white men is always going to be bigger, but like comparatively quite large repertoire of like Native American poetry and Native American literature. It doesn't exist in any of those collections because we only have the one copy remaining, and that's in the British Library, and it took me under 2 hours to read. It reads very quickly. It's very short. And I was planning on talking about it for this, and I was just like, I get to think about it again.
Aww.
I get to talk about it again. I get to dig out all my notes. I get to look through my monster spreadsheet to find all the facts that I've found from the newspapers. I get to talk about the fact that I literally created an editing account on Wikipedia so that I could make this article. I love it. So the project that it was part of was called Beyond the Spectacle, Native North American Presence in Britain.
Nice.
And yeah, it was kick-started by the AHRC and run by my university, which is very cool. They have a lot of, the whole point of it was to make these story maps, they're interactive maps that track where different Native Americans and groups of Native Americans were traveling within the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, it was Gowongo Mohawk and her like theatre company.
Mm-hmm.
But it was some other people were talking about writers, activists, tourists, like diplomatic delegates, members of the army, stuff like that. And yeah, it tracks them across
really cool
the
project.
UK. It's very cool. I feel like people don't really know that it exists because it's not very
it's not been
well publicized
yeah.
because they ran out of money to do it. So on the website, because I'm on the website right now, it says, "We will shortly be adding maps following the journeys of Cherokee diplomatic delegations, the speaking tours of Ojibwe Methodists, Deerfoot's late 19th century races, and the 1876 and 1883 tours by Canadian and Mohawk lacrosse teams, Buffalo Bill's Wild West tours between 1887 and 1904, and the early 20th century tours of Seneca playwright and actor Carrie Gowongo Mohawk." That entire paragraph has been exactly the same since October of 2021.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Which is when my story map, which I spent several weeks creating, even after I had done the spreadsheet, had been submitted and approved by the supervisor from my university who was in charge. I might actually email the guy again and be like, "So where is it?"
Hey listeners, if you're like not, if you also want to know this and it still isn't up by the time this comes out, maybe consider emailing them as well. Peer pressure works great on academics.
Absolutely. I will put the email address of the guy in the show notes. I will call him out publicly and you can all go and email him and ask. Anyway.
All right. Are we ready?
Anyway, we're done.
All right. Thank you for listening to Hey I Like. If you like what you've heard, maybe tell your friends about us. It helps to get a bigger number of listeners, and we would really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out any links in the description, or we also have a Tumblr because Twitter is a slowly sinking ship, and we are abandoning it. Our Tumblr is at heyilike.tumblr.com, and this is Hey I Like as one word, no caps, no spaces, nothing like that, just one. We have transcripts that will be available. You can find them also in the episode descriptions. Our transcript team is made of myself, JJ. We have Lucy, and we also have Pluto. And we will make sure that all transcripts are available. And we will also probably include if we roped in any additional help for any episodes, seeing as they do go, pretty long. I think that is the end of my finishing segment. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
I will see you next time when I am hosting.
You might see me next time.
Back in my normal role.
You might see me next time for one of at least 5 episodes about lace. Have fun with that one. All right.
I am looking forward to it.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it all the way to the end, congrats! You are officially much stronger than half of our friends. If you are enjoying listening to this podcast, please subscribe to get notified when we update, or follow us on Tumblr at HeyILike, all lowercase. That's all for now. See you next time on Hey, I Like.